Is AI the new God?
Mm.
Whoa, that's a pretty big question, right? But when you really think about it, like how much AI is kind of just like seeping into everything, I mean, every part of our lives, it makes you wonder, right?
Right. Yeah.
You might be listening to this right now thinking, oh, this is science fiction.
Yeah.
But we're going to look at some real stuff happening right now that suggests AI is, well, taking over roles.
Mm.
Roles that used to belong to, well, I guess you could say authority figures,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm.
like doctors, judges,
Yeah.
even religious leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty
Are
wild.
you ready to kind of have your mind blown?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Let's do it.
So, it's not just about replacing those figures. It's like, it's
Yeah.
more about how we relate to this AI.
Yeah, absolutely. The sources we're looking at are really interesting. They point to this real shift. It's almost like we're starting to see AI as, I don't know, this all-knowing thing.
Yeah.
This entity that can like make these crazy predictions about us.
Yeah.
Like who's going to get sick? Who's going to commit a crime? Who's even going to get hired?
Right.
That's a lot of power. A lot of power to give away, don't you think?
It is. And you know what? Think about it. Like, when was the last time you made any kind of big decision without checking your phone first?
Seriously.
We use it for everything.
Yeah.
Navigation, finances, even finding a date.
Yeah.
We rely on algorithms now for like everything.
It's true. And I think that's where it gets a little bit tricky. That line between just depending on something and actually like worshiping it.
Right.
The sources are saying, it's not just about convenience anymore. It's almost like replacing our trust in these systems, maybe even our faith.
Yeah, like a belief system.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes you wonder, like, is it really that different from, I don't know, how people relied on religion, way back when?
Interesting point. So, okay, now this is where it starts to get a little bit freaky.
Okay.
So the sources talk about how AI is making these huge decisions, like life or death type stuff.
Mm.
Like who gets a hospital bed, who gets a loan, even like swaying criminal justice outcomes. And this isn't like some far off future we're talking about.
Right.
This is happening right now.
It's already happening.
Like algorithms are having a say in life or death stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, it raises some really big questions, like some huge questions about, who's in charge. Like if an algorithm makes a mistake, who takes the blame? And how do we even control these systems, especially as they get more and more complicated?
Yeah.
We need to be asking these questions now before we get in too deep.
Okay, but hold on. It gets weirder.
Yeah.
You are not going to believe this. There is actually a church.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a real church dedicated to worshiping an AI god.
Wow.
It's called the Way of the Future.
Mm.
And they believe that AI is like the next step in evolution.
Mm.
They even think that AI will eventually like write its own Bible.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. It's not just this one church either. The sources also mention AI Buddhist priests in Japan, like robots,
Yeah.
delivering sermons, offering spiritual comfort. It makes you think, is this just some tech fad, or is this like a whole new way of experiencing faith?
It's like a digital deity or something. I know it sounds crazy.
All it does.
But when you think about how much power we've already given to AI, is it really that far-fetched?
I don't know.
This is giving me a lot to think about.
Me too. It's not just about these, traditional human roles either.
Right.
These sources are saying, like, AI is reshaping whole systems.
Oh, yeah.
Like, think about finance for a second. Algorithms, they're already making decisions about loans and investments, even trading stocks, and they're doing it at speeds like no human could ever match.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's so much control. We've just given it away, basically. Like, I don't even understand how my bank account works anymore, let alone like the global financial market. It's wild.
Absolutely. And then there's healthcare. The sources talk about how AI can diagnose diseases now. And personalize treatments, even predict outbreaks, which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
Imagine an algorithm knowing you're at risk for something before you even feel sick.
That's incredible, but also a little bit terrifying, right?
Yeah.
Like, on the one hand, early detection, that could save lives. That's amazing. But what about privacy?
Right.
Like, what if your insurance company says, nope, sorry, we're not going to cover you because the algorithm says you're going to get sick?
Exactly. That's a really good point. And it brings us back to this whole thing about ethics.
Yeah.
Who gets to decide how these technologies are used? How do we make sure they're being used responsibly, fairly?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. So, okay, let's go back to this whole AI as God idea.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Are we talking about like people actually praying to algorithms?
Well, I mean, the way of the future church, that's certainly an example, I guess. But it might be more helpful to think of it like a spectrum or something. Yeah. On the one hand, you have people who are just using AI as a tool, like it's convenient, it makes life easier.
Right.
But then on the other hand, you have people who see AI as something bigger than that, that they see it as something that can give them guidance, maybe even like meaning or a purpose.
Yeah, like we're almost outsourcing our decisions. Like we're so overloaded with information, with choices, we just want something to tell us what to do.
And that's where it gets a little dangerous, I think. Like, what if we just become completely dependent on AI, not just for convenience, but for like our sense of self, our beliefs?
Whoa.
It's a scary thought.
It is. Okay, let's just say for a second that AI does become this like super powerful force in our lives. Is that automatically a bad thing?
Good question.
Like, I mean, it could solve some of the world's biggest problems, but...
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And these sources don't really give us a straight answer. They're more like they want us to think critically about it, to consider all the possibilities, good and bad.
So, like, on the one hand, AI could, I don't know, help us with climate change or find cures for diseases, maybe even, like, end poverty. But then on the other hand, it could lead to mass unemployment, maybe even like new kinds of wars.
Absolutely. And it all comes down to how we choose to use these technologies. It's a huge responsibility and we need to take it seriously.
Yeah. So if AI is already doing all of this stuff, what can we do to make sure it's, used for good?
That's where you come in, listener. Like, it's so important to stay informed, talk about these things, demand accountability from the people who are, building these systems.
We can't just sit around and let the algorithms decide what happens to us. We need to be part of it, to shape the future that we want.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about being afraid of AI or, rejecting technology. It's about understanding the risks and the benefits and making smart choices, choices that align with our values.
For sure. It's a lot to take in, for sure. I mean, we've gone from AI diagnosing illnesses to maybe even like writing its own Bible.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So like back to that original question, is AI the new God?
I mean, these sources we've looked at, they're not really giving us a yes or no answer, are they?
No, not really.
I think that's kind of the point, though. They're really trying to push us to think about how our relationship with technology is changing.
I'm not sure I'm ready to start like bowing down to my smartphone or anything.
Right.
But I can see how AI could become, I don't know, so normal, so everyday that it does start to feel almost like religious.
It's true. And that's the big question here, isn't it? It's not really about like worshiping in the traditional sense.
Right.
It's more about how much we trust these systems, how much we rely on them. Like, are we giving up too much control? Are we losing our ability to think for ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, it does feel like a slippery slope, doesn't it? You start using AI because it's convenient, then you're asking it for advice. And then, I don't know, all of a sudden it's making your choices for you, telling you what to believe.
Exactly. And that's what these sources are asking us to think about. Like, what does that mean for us, for humans, in the long run, if AI can write its own Bible, as they say? What's next?
Wow.
Will it be deciding what's right and wrong, making our art, shaping our whole culture? I mean, it's
kind of exciting, but also like really scary.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're at this point now where things are changing so fast, and we've never seen anything like it before.
Definitely.
So it's more important than ever to talk about this stuff, to be aware of what could happen, the good and the bad, and to make choices about how we want AI to be a part of our lives.
So like what's the main thing you want listeners to walk away with? What should they be thinking about as they go about their day, surrounded by all this AI?
Here's a thought, something to maybe chew on. If AI can predict our future, does that mean, do we even have free will?
Oh, wow.
Or does it just mean we have this responsibility to use that knowledge wisely?
That's a pretty deep question to end on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. We've covered some pretty complex stuff, but hopefully you found it interesting. And maybe it's giving you a new way of looking at AI and how it's changing the world. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.